Hello, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Fran Osei-Wasari of Bitumi, the African Culinary Network. And today we're going to be walking through the steps of making cookies or biscuits, a shortbread recipe using some adinkra cookie stamps that we're developing right now. So I just am going to walk you through the steps. Make notes. You'll see I have my notes here that I'm always testing and retesting to see what works and what doesn't work. So I have in the kitchen here with me today DK Osei-Wasari, who's interested in the work that we're doing, and he's going to walk alongside me and be my sous chef and my helper and try his hand at making some of the biscuits himself. Okay, the first thing you want to do is wash your hands and lay out your ingredients, and you need to do it, well, I do it in the order that I will be using them so I don't forget anything, and so it's faster when I actually start the cooking. So I'm going to wash my hands and also turn on my oven to preheat, and then I'm going to start measuring out things. So you always begin by washing your hands and have very clean hands. Okay, and then I have towels right here to dry them. I'm going to be, you will step out of the view while I turn on my oven. And this is the American kitchen, so I'm using cups and Fahrenheit degrees. So a medium oven, which is 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I think I have it written down. That is about 177 degrees Celsius, or a gas mark 4. It's a moderate oven. Okay? Okay, I'm going to begin by measuring out my butter. Again, in the American kitchen, it's 3/4 of a cup. That's actually 6 ounces, which is also in American cubes. It's 1.5 cubes to get 6 ounces of butter. Well, I need a knife, and obviously I need a knife that I can cut the butter. This I just took out of the refrigerator, so it's still kind of hard. So I am going to, if you have a microwave, or if you're in a warm climate, this is not necessary. If you have a microwave, you can just soften it maybe 30 seconds, 15 or 30 seconds in the microwave to get it ready. We'll do that when we actually start cooking. And after that, you see I have a bowl right here. That's because we're going to be creaming this butter. And that's the first step when we're ready to actually start. Now you can do that with a spoon or with I'm going to use an electric mixer because it's a little bit faster. Okay. Secondly, we're going to measure out the powdered sugar. Now, I like to use confectioner sugar because it gives it really smooth, it's easier to cream it, and it makes it very smooth. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want to stick your thing in and smash it full of a cup of sugar or flour or anything. You need to just actually spoon it in, because this flour has already been sifted before it was packed, but if you scoop it in, you're going to get more sugar than you want. And you also never want to tap it down, because that would make it, again, it would make it heavier than you want it to be. So for one measuring cup, and again, on my website I'll put the grams, because I don't really remember it offhand. So then that's the sugar. Okay. Next, we're going to use an egg. I'm going to crack that now so it's ready. I did this earlier and I broke my own rule. The reason that you do this is that you may get a little bit of shell in, and you don't want that in your batter. So this gives you a chance, and I just did it, so let me take that out. Then you're not going to run out and put it directly in the bowl of your batter, because you may make a mess. All right, then we're going to need let's see, the next thing we're going to need is the vanilla. We need 1 teaspoon of the vanilla. And again, I'm even going to measure that out to make sure that my hand doesn't slop over and put in more than I need. It's best to use real vanilla, not imitation vanilla. This one I have is called Rodell, but there are many brands. Again, 1 teaspoon, I forget what that is in milliliters. Let me see, I have made a note somewhere. 4.9 milliliters. Okay, now we're going to go to the flour. Now, flour, as I said, is really important. I've made many mistakes in my testing of recipes because flour is not meant to be sifted before you put it in, nor is it meant to be scooped out like that. If you scoop it, you get maybe 1.5 cups of flour in there. If you sift it first, maybe you get like 3/4 cup of flour. So the measurements that we're using for 1.5 cups of flour, once again, you need to scoop it. I have a separate bowl here so that I don't mess it up on the table. You need to put it in, spooning it in like this, so that when you get the amount you want, I use a little, it's good to have a knife, but this one is kind of a spatula too. So then you have 1 cup, and this is a 1/2 cup measuring cup. Again, you don't want to scoop it out, you want to spoon it in gently. Gentleness is always good when you're baking. Maybe with bread you can pound it when you're kneading it, but okay. So I have my 1.5 cups of flour, and then, as I said, I often forget the salt if I don't measure it out beforehand, because it's so easy to do if you're focusing on making your batter. So for this, I need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Well, this measuring spoon is not good. Okay, let's just. And this is sea salt. It may be a little bit saltier than normal other salt, but so okay. All right, now we're ready to actually begin cooking. Now, as you can hear, our oven is heated to a moderate oven. That's also fairly important if you check your oven temperature that it's accurate, because a lot of ovens vary like 25 degrees each way. So you'll know your oven, you'll know what you need to do to get them all heat. Now, I'm just going to soften the butter for like a minute. Not a minute, maybe 30 seconds. Just enough that it will become fluffy when we add the powdered sugar, so we can cream it really well. If you do it by hand, it might take a little bit longer, but you can use a wooden spoon and just beat it as well. So I think that's perfect. Okay, now we have now we have the butter. I actually melted it a little bit, but that won't really hurt. It doesn't have to be that soft. Okay, just put it into this mixing bowl. And the second thing is, remember, we've measured out our powdered sugar. We're just going to put that in. And because of time, I'm going to go ahead and use an electric mixer. You can just as easily use a good wooden spoon to mix this. And I'm going to mix this for about 3 minutes maybe. Maybe less since it's sometimes I sort of stop in the middle and just scoop down the sides, but especially since I have this so liquid. Also, powdered sugar creams faster than granulated sugar does. Okay, now that we have the flour creamed, we're going to add the egg and the vanilla. And continue to beat that until it is all fluffy. There, you see that's kind of fluffy. Now, the reason I said that we measured out the salt was so that I don't forget to add it in when I'm cooking it. And we're now I'm going to switch over to a wooden spoon now because I want to stir this flour in. You can use the mixer too. I just, you know, because flour has gluten in it, you want to handle it very gently, and you don't want it to become tough. And so if you are using a mixer, you have to stop it as soon as it is pretty well mixed in. Now, again, with doughs with gluten, you don't really need to chill the dough the way you do with gluten-free because it will stick together. Now, if it's a little bit liquid, like this appears a little bit sticky, I'm just going to add a little bit more flour. You can do that. If it's too dry, you can add like a tablespoon of milk or something, a little bit at a time until you get it the right texture. Okay, this still, I guess melting that butter made this kind of too liquid. All right. The next step is now going to be making these cookies. I think my dough is still a little bit too soft. I have two sets of the stamps that we printed here. I have some flour here. Remember, my dough was a little bit sticky. And in order to work with it without having it stick to my hands, I just want to make sure that I flour them first a little bit. And also, we need some flour here because when you're stamping the cookies, you need to put flour on here to prevent it from sticking to the stamp when you're doing it. I'm using parchment paper. I got into the habit when I was using all of my gluten-free cookies that I do, because you need to use something to prevent it from sticking. But it's very convenient once you've got used to using it. So I'm going to pull out a couple pieces of parchment paper. I have my rolling pin here. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of flour on here. That will help with stickiness too. But also, I usually just dump some of the flour right there for dipping the cookie cutters in when I'm making. And I usually divide my dough in half. This is very soft dough. I think, once again, you can use a little more flour if you need to, but I'm going to pat this out, roll it out, and then when I bake cookies, I read somewhere that it's better for these kind of shortbread cookies to turn the surface up so there's no lip around it that keeps the heat from distributing evenly. So I turn my cookie sheet this way, and there's lots of butter in this. You're not going to need any more butter. So, shall we go ahead and do it? I'm going to invite my assistant over here pretty soon. Hello again, I'm back. I realized why my dough was so soft was because I mismeasured my flour. It was 2.5 cups and not 1.5 cups. And so I added in the flour. One batch is already in the oven cooking, but you know, your dough will tell you when something's wrong. I knew that something was wrong with my dough. It's too soft. And we figured out what the problem was. So I did add another cup of flour in altogether, and I am now rolling out the dough between two pieces of parchment paper. I've already made a few dozen that I put in the oven, but my son is here. I'm going to let him try. Oh, look at bad. I had the wrong side of that. Well, I show the flour on it, which isn't the way it's supposed to be, but today we'll do it that way. We're rushing. All right, so the first thing you do is dip the cookie cutter in flour, but you don't want a lot because you don't really want that kind of thing on it. And then press it down till it makes an indentation. Then center this carefully or you will have a lopsided cookie. And next, I use a knife. These cookies are fairly fragile. Here's another cookie sheet, thank you. You just, they're, sometimes if you make them about an eighth of an inch, they'll be thin. If you make it 1/4 of an inch, then that's a heartier cookie, and it depends on what you like. So, would my son like to come over here and try? You want to roll it out? Kind of gently, all different directions. So. A little harder than that. I'll lift up the paper and see how it goes. Yeah.
A little bit thinner.
A little bit thinner. Right there, that place over. It's hard to get it. Sometimes it's hard to get it all evenly, so you may find that that's probably enough. Stop. You're going to make it too thin.
Is this part is here too thin over here?
Yeah. It's okay. It's fine. He's making 1/4 inch thick, which is what I started to do, but I ended up in most mine a little bit thinner. Okay, I think he's good.
So, a little bit of dip in the flour. Tap it off.
And push it down. Yep. Leave enough room that the thing will go around it for the cookie cutter. See, you're a little bit close to that. And make enough for the two of them. You have to cut them each out. And it's a little bit, the cutter is a little bit larger to make a sort of a frame around each one. Then, yeah.
I won't be the one I taste.
That's fine. Yeah, you have to have a good light, otherwise you think you got it centered and you find it off. Now, yeah, use that underneath it to lift it up. Exactly. Ta-da. They shouldn't quite be touching when you put them on the sheet. Make that one a little bit. Yeah, good. And that's all there is to it. So we're going to finish up this sheet and put it in the oven. We have the other ones cooling over there. And
it's too thick.
Okay, you can make it a little thinner. Like I said, they're chewier when they're thicker, they're crisper when they're thinner. And it depends on what you like. Like this, don't get it too thin, or when you press down, it will make the parts surrounding here will become too thin and it will break.
I'm going to try this one. The one that you said is difficult.
Put on flour. There's one we're still working on, which is called the ram's horns, and it's a little bit hard, but yeah. Okay. Now, I just want to mention that I have toothpicks here because while we're still working this out, especially with the ram's horns, sometimes some of the dough will stick inside. The ram's horns are a symbol of strength with humility, right? Is that right? I think it means you'll push a little bit harder. If you don't do it evenly, then you will get an uneven impression. Okay, let's put those on there. I'm going to take the other cookies off. Sometimes you should leave the cookies on the cookie sheet when you take them out of the oven for a couple of minutes so that they get harder and they won't bend when you pick them up. Great.
So I can take this dough and roll it back up?
Yep. Be gentle with it because it's like a pie crust. It will get tough if you roll it out too many times. This one is a little tougher than normal because I had to add the flour in after I had mixed it, but it's fine, especially with a cup of coffee.
So I tap it down first.
Oh.
And then I roll it.
Again, you don't really need a parchment paper. I just have gotten used to using it. It looks like you didn't have any of them stick to the cookie cutter, did you?
I used another technique. As I was pushing it in, I was wiggling it.
Oh, wow.
so that it didn't have time to stick. That was my experiment.
Okay, well.
And then also I think you can feel that if you push it further, it would stick. So there's a weird tactile sense feedback.
That's good. These cookie cutters are printed with PLA, transparent PLA filament with a 3D printer. Now, I did call Penn State's food science department and asked them, because I read all these things about bacteria getting inside and how it's not food safe. He said that they've been using 3D printing all the time and they have never had any trouble with it. Now, this also had a brass nozzle on the 3D printer, and that's apparently a no-no for working with food safe polymers and stuff. So I'm trying to find someone to manufacture these stamps so that we can make them available to everybody. Oh, you did this one thinner.
I know.
Okay, so these are going to be crispier. I actually like them crispier rather than chewier. I think, yeah. You like the ram's horns. When you're making the chocolate cookies, the only difference here is that you mix, I would remove maybe a couple tablespoons of the flour from the 2.5 cups and put in a 1/4 cup of, that's 4 tablespoons. I'm not sure how many, how heavy that is in ounces, but you sift it together. You sift the chocolate and the regular flour together so that it's nicely blended, and proceed as the same steps. And then when you're printing out the cookies, instead of putting white flour, I mix a little bit of cocoa powder, and I use the Dutch cocoa powder. It seems to give me much better results for the flavor. I mix a little bit of the Dutch cocoa in with the white flour, because you know how we have a little bit of white flour on these. If you do that on chocolate cookies, it looks really bad. So if you're rusty,
my one got a little bit weird, but it's okay.
Yeah. Those are the tasty ones. Yeah, now these will cook less. I usually, with the thick ones, it's about 12 minutes to 15 minutes. With the thinner ones, I only cook them for about 10 minutes because I don't want them to burn. They should just get brown on the bottom, but let me show you. They should get slightly brown on the bottom like this, but the top should not be browned. They should slightly brown on the bottom like that, and then they're cooked. Do you want to take a picture of that?
I think it's too sticky.
I'll just have to skip that one. Can I have a cookie sheet? thought you were going to do some calculations. Okay. I thought you were going to do some calculations. Oh, you should show how this one stuck to it. Yeah, you should show that's the problem we're having with the prototype. That it's too. Did you want to try making